we'll start with this. You might have heard earlier today, Sky Sports and Jake Paul's MVP agreed to major broadcast deal for women's boxing. The big women's boxing boom, the women's boxing renaissance that started circa 2016, had a lot to do with Sky Sports' investment in women's boxing via Matchroom, and that investment continues. All of these years later, Sky Sports, and now, will be the home of Most Valuable Promotions' new women's boxing platform, MVPW, in the UK and Ireland, after agreeing to a multi-year deal with the promoter. The deal means Sky Sports will exclusively broadcast 2 all-female UK fight nights every year, with the card at London's Olympia on Sunday, April 5th, being MVPW's first UK event. The all-women's bill at Olympia, live on Sky this Sunday, will include a historic double main event with Caroline Dubois meeting British rival Terry Harpier in a lightweight world title unification, as well as 3-belt super bantamweight champion Ellie Scottney facing Mexico's WBA champion Mayeli Flores, in a bout where victory would see her become the UK's youngest undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. As well as events on UK soil, Sky Sports will also show select MVPW US Fight Nights starting in the early hours of April 18th, when unified super featherweight champion Alicia Baumgartner defends her titles against South Korea's Bomi Shin at the Infosys Theater at Madison Square Garden, previously known as the Hulu Theater. On the undercard, Jadeja Green will make a 10-round defense of her unified IBF and WBO super middleweight world titles against former light heavyweight champion Lonnie Daniels. Sky Sports' chief officer, UK and Ireland, Jonathan Licht, said, "This agreement with MVP underlines Sky Sports' ambition to showcase the very best in women's boxing to sports fans and new audiences. As the UK and Ireland's biggest investor and broadcaster of women's sport, we are proud to be a part of the momentum women's boxing is enjoying and adding the sport to our unrivaled lineup." 2026 is set to be a huge year yet again for women's sport, with the ICC Women's T20 World Cup on home soil, as well as the Solheim Cup, WSL, and more, all live on Sky. Jake Paul and Nikisa Badarian, co-founders of MVP, said, "This partnership with Sky marks a major milestone for MVPW and women's boxing globally." Why have they branded it MVPW? Likely because MVP is growing. It's branching out. Don't forget, they're also the lead promoter for the upcoming Gina Carano versus Ronda Rousey MMA card. Through MVPW, we are committed to delivering meaningful opportunities for fighters while producing premium events that expand the global reach and commercial potential of women's boxing, bringing 2 premium all-female MVPW events to the UK and Ireland each year, starting with the historic MVPW 1 on Sunday, April 5th at London's Olympia, is exactly what we envisioned when we launched this platform. We have the best female British boxers in the world, and Sky Sports is the perfect home to showcase the elite talent and champion-level action that defines MVPW. Together, we're committed to continuing to elevate women's boxing to the main stage it deserves, delivering unforgettable nights for fans across the UK and beyond. Sky Sports has broadcast some of the most historic moments in women's boxing, including the first all-female card in 2022, which was headlined by Clarissa Shields' landmark win over Savannah Marshall. More than 2 million viewers tuned in, making it the most watched women's professional boxing event at that time, delivering Sky's biggest audience for a live women's sporting event ever. Just last year, Sky Sports exclusively broadcast the second all-female card in the UK, headlined by Lauren Price versus Natasha Jonas from the Royal Albert Hall, a comparatively smaller show, smaller fight. As the UK and Ireland's biggest investor and broadcaster of women's sports, Sky Sports' agreement with MVP reinforces the broadcaster's commitment to showcasing the best female fighters and contributing to the continued growth of the sport. Sky accounted for 79% of all televised women's sport coverage in 2025 in the UK, with total viewing up 25% across over 4,000 hours of women's sport broadcasting. So let's not forget that Sky Sports, just as much as Matchroom at the time, was incremental in what became the big women's boxing boom that got kicked off by Katie Taylor. That's where it started for them and for Matchroom, but it continued. Beyond Matchroom's time on the platform, it continued via Boxer. Now it's continuing via MVP. I'm not completely sure how this latest announcement differs from the first one they made a few weeks ago announcing this partnership. The only thing I see that's different is now they're saying they're committed to not just one but two all-female cards annually in what is a multi-year deal. Though if what Sky Sports wanted to do was stay in boxing, why didn't they extend their deal with Boxer? Why'd they cut them loose? To then replace them with MVP? It's likely because this is not as big a financial burden as being the exclusive broadcaster of all Boxer shows. This is cheaper. Committing to a minimum of 2 UK shows for MVP and showing their other stuff that's going on in the United States, it doesn't cost Sky as much money. It's cheaper. The idea of all women's boxing cards is somewhat of a taboo subject. Sectioning off the women like that instead of intermingling them with the men and the men's fights. You don't want to keep accenting that it's a women's boxing match or a women's boxing card. You just want to present it as boxing. Boxing for the sake of boxing. You don't want to make it sound like you should watch it because it's the right thing to do or you're fighting for a cause. It's entertainment. Thus, you need to present it as such. They had success with the Shields versus Marshall all-female show. But the second all-female show, headlined by Natasha Jonas and Lauren Price, happened on a much smaller scale. Now, Dubois versus Harper, which is also an all-female show promoted by MVP, not Boxer, is happening this Sunday afternoon, which we can watch in the United States via ESPN Plus and their broadcast deal with them. It's a great-looking card, by the way. A great main event and a great co-main event.
I knew Duarte was so prepared and so ready to become world champion that when they called me at 2 p.m., I was the first one they called. Before they called his manager, before they called Golden Boy, before they called anybody, I was the first person they called and told me that Hitchens had pulled out because he had got sick. Believe me, and I don't want to sound like a wuss. I cried because I knew my fighter was so ready to become champion. Tears came up because I was so sure he was going to become champion, and I teared by myself in my room because I was so sure he was going to become world champion. But it's part of boxing. We go back, we move on. Now he's scheduled to fight May 2nd. So we're ready. He's got the WBC is backing him up now. If I'm not mistaken, they're gonna do it for some kind of WBC title and try to push him in the rankings to one day a future fight against Pitbull Cruz, which is a huge name in Mexico. I would love that fight too. Duarte versus Cruz would be a tremendous war. So if that's the direction we're taking, I'm okay with it now. But at that moment, believe me, I hate it because I'm Mexican. You know how proud we are. I teared, man, because I was so sure he was going to become champion.
I was sure of it too. I was certain that Oscar Duarte was going to steamroll Richardson Hitchens just based on the styles. Oscar's a pressure guy. Hitchens is a pure boxer. You know what usually happens when you mix those two styles. I didn't take it as hard as Robert Garcia claims to have taken it. Not being able to reschedule the fight as a result of Hitchens being locked into a Lindolfo Delgado fight via the IBF is likely another reason they took it hard. Just like that, Duarte's title shot evaporated. Hitchens wasn't sick. Just like Robert felt that Oscar was going to win, and I felt that Oscar was going to win, I think that Richardson Hitchens felt it too, and at the very last minute, he decided to withdraw. Hitchens wasn't sick. But now he's on the hook to fight another Mexican fighter in Lindolfo Delgado, his mandatory challenger, and Oscar Duarte is set to return to action on the undercard of Benavidez versus Zurdo. Provided that he wins, the World Boxing Council is now assisting in getting him an Isaac Cruz fight. It's where it gets interesting. I don't know how ethical it is for a sanctioning body who's intended to be an impartial mediator to assist a fighter in getting a title shot. I thought that was something you have to earn. I didn't know they were supposed to help you. But even with that dubious practice, I am not against an Oscar Duarte versus Isaac Cruz fight. Isaac Cruz, who's been tenuously tied to a rematch with his old buddy, Gervonta Davis, except that Gervonta Davis has got a lot of legal trouble right now that's keeping him out of the ring. No ETA on when that rematch is supposed to happen. No idea when Gervonta Davis would be making his ring return, and so Isak is available. Isak just so happens to be the WBC's interim champion at 140 pounds. He's got what I like to call the WBC Stay Busy belt, the interim belt, because when the World Boxing Council hands out those interim titles, all they seem to do is keep the fighter busy, as the WBC then orders you to defend that interim title. He's been interim champion as of July of last year, about the same time that Subriel Matias beat Alberto Puello for the full version of that title. That same month, they were on the same schedule. Ideally, the World Boxing Council would have then ordered Isak to take on Subriel in defense of the full title, a Mexico versus Puerto Rico fight. An established rivalry in the sport of boxing that we all know ain't hard to sell, so what was the point in the World Boxing Council allowing Isak to become interim champion if he wasn't going to fight for the full title? Told you, the interim title is the Stay Busy title. It's the Stay Busy belt. It allows the World Boxing Council to collect sanctioning fees from more than one champion, the full one and the interim. That's what it's really for. It allows them to mandate separate fights for both the full champion and the interim champion, collecting sanctioning fees from both. If Isak and Subriel both became champions in the same month in the same year, it would have been ideal to have them fight each other. What they did was, they had Subriel fight Dalton Smith instead. Dalton became his mandatory challenger, and Dalton beat him at the beginning of this year. He is WBC champion now, and it doesn't look like the WBC is going to order that fight either. No, because they just ordered Dalton to fight Alberto Puello, the former champion, who's still coming off a loss, by the way. What the fuck? Charting a course to a potential Isak Cruz versus Oscar Duarte fight, provided that Oscar wins in May, which I'm not against. That's a great fight. Pressure fighter versus pressure fighter, accenting Oscar De La Hoya's previous comments about doing a lot more business with the PBC. Remember when he said that? Since then, they've made at least two fights. The Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios fight, the upcoming Benavidez versus Zurdo Ramirez fight. This could be another Duarte versus Cruz. Isak, who still seems to be in the running for a Gervonta Davis rematch, but the embattled Gervonta Davis has other things on his mind and on his plate. So go fight Oscar, you little garden gnome. In a pressure fighter versus pressure fighter style matchup, which you don't often see, by the way, between Isak and Oscar, I tend to lean towards Oscar Duarte. Even though Oscar Duarte has been knocked out before, where Isak Cruz hasn't, knocked out by Brian Garcia, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, he's improved since then. Used stronger pads. Yeah, because I think he's on a sauce. I don't really give a shit if he is, but I think he is, by the way. I think he's a bigger guy, more adequately suited to fight at 140 than Isak Cruz, who's done little more than knock out Rolly Romero. Draw with Lamont Roach. He's been up there for about 5 fights, campaigning as a super lightweight, not really being adequately suited to do it, so they've had to get creative. Since he's been up there, he hasn't faced any top-tier, top-shelf 140-pounders. Instead, he's kept busy with guys that have moved up, like Rolly, like Rayo, like Roach. I think Isak versus Oscar is a big train, little train situation between pressure fighters, where it's gonna boil down to who brought the bigger guns to the gun show, and I think that's Oscar. I think he would overwhelm Isak Cruz. I think he might be the first to stop him. Another win in the column for Golden Boy in what is their ongoing rivalry with the PBC. Ryan just added to it by decision in Mario Barrios, and Oscar Duarte might add to it by beating Isak Cruz. If they can make it, they can. Isak can't keep hiding behind that rematch with Gervonta. He can't keep using that as an excuse to not fight people. Just in keeping with the theme of Mexican fighters, rumors abound. The yet-to-be-announced but heavily rumored bout between Canelo Alvarez and Christian Mbilli in September is no longer being considered for Saudi Arabia due to the region's current instability. All that Iran stuff, thus making Saudi Arabia a less than ideal site for a major fight. Instability within the region, and as a result, it's now expected to take place in either Las Vegas or Mexico. I think the Canelo Alvarez faction of fans are collectively breathing a sigh of relief that he might fight closer to home, where they can be there in attendance to support him. The caveat with those big Saudi fights happening in Saudi is a lot of people ain't gonna travel over there.
It's too far out of the way.
Takes them too far from home. Whereas if it's happening in Vegas or if it's happening in Mexico, south of the border, you can go there, you can make a weekend out of it, still be able to go to work on Monday. So I think that will be welcome news, that Canelo may be fighting closer to home against Christian Mbilli.
Credible opponent.
Credible scalp, fueling my suspicions that when the World Boxing Council decided to rescind their initial order for a rematch between Christian and Lester the Molester, it's because they wanted to keep the way clear for Canelo to fight for that belt.
They ain't got no shame.
And they don't hide what their intentions are. Remember, following Christian's first fight with Lester, they ordered an immediate rematch, then rescinded that order, realizing that by stripping Terence Crawford of the WBC title, it would then be available for Canelo to fight for it. And we all know they would prefer that Canelo hold their title.
So he may have to go through Christian Mbilli to do it. Can he handle that assignment? A big, young, persistent pressure fighter like Christian? Historically, Christian presents the kind of style that Canelo normally can handle.
He normally does well against that style, but being in his mid-30s now in the night of, having been out for a year.
Supposed to go down in September.
Canelo Alvarez having last fought in September of last year, skipping Cinco de Mayo of this one to then come back in September.
Ring Ross!
You wonder that the weight of over 60 professional bouts is not bearing down on Canelo Alvarez, who's not old in terms of age, though he has amassed a lot of wear and tear, causing him to slow down his schedule at this point in his boxing career, though it's not one way. Christian Mbilli, while not having been around as long as Canelo, not having as many fights, in the fights that he has had,
Got hit a lot.
in the Carlos Gongara fight, the Sergey Derevyanchenko fight, the more recent Lester the Molester fight, you can only endure that much punishment, take that many hits, but for so long.
They weren't in a hurry to run it back with Lester the Molester.
They knew how difficult that fight was. They were non-committal to that fight, so you can imagine they were breathing a sigh of relief when the World Boxing Council rescinds that order to make way for a Canelo fight that pays substantially more.
Now, there is no news of Christian staying busy in the interim en route to the Canelo fight in September.
So that if he doesn't, that would put both him and Canelo Alvarez on the same schedule since Christian last fought in September of last year. So did Canelo.
Ah, they come back at the same time. They're both shaken off the same amount of ring rust.
If you're on the eve of landing a potential Canelo Alvarez fight, you don't jeopardize your position taking on voluntaries and amassing more wear and tear. That I wouldn't be at all surprised if Christian doesn't fight anytime in between now and September.
Why would he?
And what will be Canelo Alvarez's chance to show that either he still got it or maybe he should hang the gloves up. As Christian presents a style that he normally looks good against, if he's reached a point where he can't handle that style anymore,
It's time to call it a career.
we'll see what time it is if the rumors ring true and this fight goes down in September.